indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, happy and healthy New Year to everyone. Welcome to our January 6th meeting on the budget, 2015-16 budget. Mr. Barrett?
Yes, I hope everyone can hear me back there. I'll try to speak up. Tonight's budget, again, that's our annual preliminary budget review for our 2015-16 budget. And as always, some of this, all this will go on our website tomorrow, and as we update our budget throughout the budget season, all this will go on the budget. But again, for those who aren't familiar with Rhode Island, the town and the schools can go up to 4% maximum over the previous year's budget. Calculations based on multiplying the local levy, and that's the current levy, times 0.04, which translates to a maximum of $938 and $991 in additional spending if the school committee chose that we had needs that require that kind of funding. Due to Rhode Island Department of Ed's recalculation of state aid and the funding formula, we're expected to receive $180,121 in additional state aid. If all-day K is approved, state aid will increase by $243,328. However, for the presentation, for our conversations, when you talk about total dollars available, it's $1,119,112. Again, this is just, this really hasn't changed from year to year. Our increase in state aids based on RIDE's annual recalculation, as I just mentioned. The budget is put together starting usually in early November, as we did this year. And it's put together by myself, the building principals, the tech director, and the curriculum director. And this is our calendar. Under the charter, we need to have a preliminary budget submitted to the budget committee by January 15th. March 14th of 2015, the budget, our final budget needs to be submitted to the budget committee. April 10th, if the school committee chooses to submit an optional budget, it must be done so by then. And then the FDR is held now on the third Saturday in May, which will be May 16, 2015. And for the committee, these slides we've already talked about, so I don't think I need to go through them all, but these next few slides are why all-day K. Amy went through this with us last month, but I felt it's important, especially since we're going to have it up online, and for the budget committee to understand why all-day K, why we're advocating for it this year. And again, 70% of Rhode Island kindergarten students attend a full-time program currently. Of course, Tiverton, we have a half-day program. RIDE encouraging expansion to full-day K. Learning expectations for K students have increased substantially since when we were in school and just within the last 10 years. And of course, kindergarten, first grade, second grade are really the key grades to lay the groundwork for academic success later on in a child's development. Why all-day K makes sense. Obviously, the younger the student, the greater the cognitive flexibility or the ability to grow with their skill sets. Kindergartners have more flexibility in their thinking, make greater advances in problem solving, and from talking to the teachers, talking to to my elementary principals, there's no question that this will benefit our students, in the long run. That will give them it will put them on a level playing field where a lot of their peers in neighboring districts already are, because they have full-day K. And again, these are just some studies that Amy provided to us. Walston and West, I'm not going to go through them again. Lee and Burkham, Cryan, and so on. Here's what we do know about our half-day program. 24% of our Tiverton kindergartners receive literacy intervention, and 22% receive interventions in math. Tiverton's first graders start off having, again, half as much prior public school instruction as the majority of their peers. And in our first grade, our data shows that interventions work to close some of our gaps, but still 16% of our general ed first graders need literacy intervention and 20% need math. And we believe the all-day K will help reduce those numbers significantly. And here's, we talked about this before, we checked that we would need 3 teachers, 6 part-time assistants. You can see the cost. We would achieve savings from subtracting our 3 midday bus runs, which we currently run. And the additional state aid for next year would drive the cost down to $126,784. And then next year, the year after, excuse me, in FY17, we're projecting additional state aid of $126,622, basically resulting in an additional net local cost of $369 for this very important program that we're advocating for. And I probably should have done the numbers in brighter colors, but basically you can see with our student population trend is pretty consistent. We've seen a slight drop since 2011. Oops, go back. 2011-12 school year in elementary, we're projecting about 685 students next year versus 715 that we had in 2011-2012. But overall, the population at all 3 grade levels has remained pretty consistent over the last 5 years. In addition to the staffing for the all-day K, as we talked about in previous meetings, we're recommending a 2/5 math position for ramp-up courses at the high school, geometry and algebra, as well as a 2/5 science position for additional ramp-up courses in grade 9 science. Again, we've had discussions previously for the folks that may be here for the first time reviewing it at home. We've had a number of conversations regarding how we want to try to increase and provide additional support for our students in math and science. At the middle school, we're talking again about adding 2/5 math, 2/5 science. The 4 part-time positions I'm recommending can be paid for by reallocating funds, which are currently in the 14-15 budget and will not impact our 15-16 request. Also recommending to the school committee that we increase our remedial math position at Fort Barton to 4/5. Currently, we have 44 students who are eligible for services, but we can only provide support to 29 of those students. Based on the enrollment projections for Fort Barton next year, Suzette's pretty confident that those numbers will be similar as far as need goes. And we've also talked about trying to introduce digital literacy skills at our elementary schools. And again, after consulting with curriculum director and the elementary principals, we feel that if we hire a part-time elementary teaching assistant to help the librarian, that would provide that person the time to actually teach various digital literacy skills to our students. Capital is, most of us know here, we paid for a study which was conducted last year in the middle school and the high school. And all these capital requests, for the most part, come from that facility study. They come right out of it, and you can see that we begin with repair the metal exterior railings outside the cafeteria. This is not in the report, but if you actually go back right behind the high school by the cafeteria, Mr. Bizette has marked it off with kind of like some security tape to let the students know that they shouldn't go near there. But it is a safety concern that we have. We've already gotten an estimate to replace it, and that's the price that you see right there. Also, there's a request from the high school to replace 16 art tables that are currently breaking apart. We're replace doors at the alternate entrance, which is located in the front of the school, which would be down this side of the school, not the main entrance, but this side right here as you face the school. Reseal the flue on top of the chimney. We had mason go through the exterior of the building to make sure that all our cracks and things like that were addressed. So you'll see some of these like that in there. Install split ductless air conditioning units in the computer tech ed lab, which is located on the main floor in order to reduce the heat in the classroom, and replace the pneumatic controls which are in the boiler room. And those all come out of the facilities report. Install 5 additional ADA water fountains, repoint the furnace chimney, flash and caulk 100 feet along the exterior of the gym wall where the stucco meets the brickwork, repair brickwork on 11 corners around the top of the school, and replace 6 courses of brick in the garage area, which is cracked, which is located in the back of the tech ed. We have a garage back there for our meetings. At the middle school, purchased new stools for the tech ed classroom, purchased 15 ADA water fountains, purchased supplies for the art program so they can use the kiln that they have, replaced dampener actuators in the generator room, and I don't know what they are, but they are in that report, so I could find out what they are, but it was a recommended concern by the facilities committee. Again, replace the pneumatic control system in the generator room at the middle school, refurbish unit ventilators in the library. Again, these all come out of the report. Remove the greenhouse and make the exterior stairs and roof weather-tight at the middle school. Grout out the ceiling at expansion joints on the sidewalks and reseal them. And at all 3 of the elementary schools, the emergency lighting needs to be addressed because of, I guess, the units that we purchased originally, they just keep burning themselves out. The facilities report states that we should replace all 3 of them in each of the schools. And Manny, Mr. Cabral chaired the committee. Manny, that was a priority, wasn't it? Safety.
That was a priority, safety priority.
Identified by
both the committee as well as the fire department.
Is that interior lighting?
Yes.
Interior lighting when we lose electricity.
Oh, so that the children can safely exit?
Correct.
Yes.
Or the fire department.
That's
Lighting on the
the night,
response.
okay.
And we've long, our ability to go back, just because people are
Yes.
going to say these are new schools,
Right.
our ability to
Right.
go back and
It's the past.
it is passed, yeah.
And you can see them in all 3 of the schools.
So our ability to go back to the builder has long
Which we would
passed.
like to do, yeah.
Did we,
Not that one.
for bids, or just like a general
That's
estimate? Because it's-
these are the prices that were given to us by RGB
Oh, when they did the study.
when they did the study.
So they could be
So they could be lower.
Lower.
They could be higher.
higher.
But since it's less than a year old, the study, I'm going to assume that those prices
Pretty good.
are fairly accurate. And it gives us a good ballpark to work. Some technology requests that are new. Purchase the iBoss software program, which Al can speak to it if you have any additional questions, but it allows for us to maintain our band service during our peak hours so that we don't crash. It also provides additional content filtering for all our computers in the system. The Type to Learn program is to help support the digital literacy program that we're recommending. And we talked about online courses through VHS at the high school. And that would be the 3rd. And the last item is a new server for accounting and food service for Chartwells. And I believe that is it. Well, it's not it, because I know there's more slides. Yeah? Find me my other slides. There we go. In this budget, in part, as I mentioned earlier, in order to balance off those additional science and math positions. I've taken out the community service coordinator position. The part-time, full-time high school guidance clerk would be eliminated. 1 elementary guidance position and 4 special education teaching positions would be also eliminated from the budget.
What does it say?
It saves, I don't have the number in front of me, but it allows us to come in at .9. And I can get you the exact, numbers.
About 350,000.
Here we go.
Where's the special ed? Is that
They're
just
throughout
reduced
the-
need?
It's need and, it's need is the bottom line, is we have fewer students, and at the elementary level, what we're going to be doing is providing the co-taught models for math and English, and not for science and social studies in the afternoon. But I met with Mrs. Krager and Mrs. Andre, the Assistant Director of Special Ed, and we went through the numbers, and they're confident that we can do it for fewer teachers for next year.
So co-taught in the morning, not in the afternoon?
That's correct. That would be the biggest significant change, otherwise I think it makes the same. The budget as proposed represents an increase of $269,909, which is a 0.9% increase from this year's budget. That's, again, it's assuming that we will do the same thing as we did last year, that we take the capital requests that I just went through, assuming the committee wants to approve all of them or part of them, whatever the final amount is that we take out of our fund balance. And again, it's practice we've been following for at least the last 2 or 3 years. And again, the budget supports student achievement with our all-day K, the additional staffing in math and science, along with increasing the remedial math position at Fort Barton. And it also addresses facilities, some of the smaller facilities questions that we said we would try to address with our own dollars. So that's it in a nutshell. Doug has provided the committee with a line-by-line item, and we're happy to answer any questions about what I just proposed or items that Doug has given you.
If we continue to make the decision to take that, the capital items out of fund balance, are we going to get a fund balance roll forward, Doug? So we can see what's in there?
Yeah, I can do that for next week's meeting,
Okay.
but I don't see a concern. We're going to have, there's going to be sufficient fund balance available to fund those projects.
Okay.
But then what would be left, I guess?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see, the roll forward.
Yeah, percentage-wise, we'd still be around 3% of our fund balance as part of our operating budget.
Without that.
No, if we were to take those out.
Take it out. Does the committee have any questions?
Yeah, other years' health insurance increases have been a concern. Do you have a number you're working with?
8%.
As a proxy and a historical average, I've been in contact with the trust, and they recommend using 8%, so that's what I've built into our budget. We have other extenuating circumstances, so if you actually look at the sheet, it looks like we're going down in health insurance. A big part of that reason is the budget for last year didn't account for the decrease that we had, so that number in the first column is a little high.
Remember we said we were
That's
going to not use
right.
it?
We didn't use it.
Yes.
Savings, and that we would roll it.
So are we offsetting that 8% for next year with some of the savings that came back to us?
Yes.
That's certainly one
That's why you see
approach.
such a low number.
But we did use 8%. Normally, we'll get that number in the next month or so, and I'll be able to get a more final estimate of our health insurance costs.
Okay.
I'm not expecting a decrease, I'm sorry, based on the last 2 or 3 years, because we are running a little higher, so part of our rate for renewal is based on our actual experience.
I did have a question on the digital literacy with the part-time teaching assistant. Will that allow our elementary students to receive additional instructional minutes in library each week?
It'll just make sure that the librarian will have time to teach the digital literacy skills.
But if the students, if she's
Okay.
spending, or he is spending the same number of minutes
It will
teaching.
increase somewhat the instructional time to the librarian. The part-time aide that we're looking for is going to be the person that's going to sign in, sign out.
To do other things.
So they'll do that, that person hired will be the person that'll be in and out with books. Instead of the librarian spending half of his instructional period doing that activity, we'll have that outside of the library time.
Oh, so when students come in, book selection will not be part of their 30 or 40-minute library period. They'll now be able to do that at another time. Okay, so that will free up, additional instructional time. Okay, great. And then I did have a follow-up question also on the virtual high school. We raised the question in November about the AP passing scores for, at other high schools where students were taking AP virtual classes.
After that meeting, I asked Amy to reach out to all the schools that VHS gave us. 3 have reported back to us, Narragansett, Bristol, Warren, and Rogers, and their scores, they had a total of 13 students, and they matched up. They were what VHS said they were.
So we don't have it broken, we don't know what AP courses those 13 students took? We do?
Yep, AP Psych, AP Statistics, AP Computer Science, AP Economics, AP Environmental Science, AP Government and Politics.
So could you tell me the pass rates for the courses we're planning on offering?
I don't think we've identified the ones that were for sure.
Well, we did have a list.
Yeah, but we haven't
didn't know.
decided on them.
All right, so how about computer science? Because I think that
I
was
can
one
give
of
you
them.
what we have. I
Oh,
can-
yeah, if you wanted
For
to
the AP
share.
Psychology, it was 1-1, 1-3, 1-2, and 1-1.
I mean, it's going to be hard. So what's the, out of the 13 kids who took AP
Yep.
tests, how many passed, got a 3 or higher? Well, I guess we'll start with that, because I think that's...
Or Amy, yeah, you can jump in if you have the numbers too.
Yeah, but that's the total, not the broken down ones. In other words, the 3 that reported back.
Or if you don't have it in front of you, you can
Then,
get it to
yeah,
us for next time.
another meeting, we're meeting next
That's
week,
fine.
that'll be
Yeah,
fine.
we can get it
Just give me
then.
a second.
Oh, okay.
I got 5, I'm sorry, 6. 6 got a 3 or higher,
Okay, so,
Oh,
of the 13 that we...
right,
But
okay.
I'm going to assume that if those 13 are accurate, I mean, I think you can make an assumption that if those 3 districts, their numbers are accurate, the others are also accurate.
right.
We can give you that. We got all the breakdown. We can give that
Okay,
to you.
that gives us a good idea
Yeah.
for tonight.
We can get it next time. Any other questions?
Yeah, the 4/5 remedial for Ranger, do the other,
For Barton.
for Barton, do Pecassin Ranger already have one?
Yes.
Okay.
And Fort Barton also has gained additional students. They have the bubble class, and all the schools now are on 250 students next year,
And the,
1 to 225.
all right, so that was that. And you asked my library question. Removing the greenhouse and making the exterior stairs and roof weather tight, do we have to remove the greenhouse? I mean, can we make it weather tight without, I mean, or is it just, it's just deteriorating and it sits up there? Was that the issue? Okay, well, like safety.
And also, you would, it was more safety than
I mean, I don't even know what's up there, but, so it's,
safety.
Beat up greenhouse.
yeah. So it's falling
It
in,
was a
that kind of
safety
thing?
issue, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And, I think, and I guess we can talk about this at the next meeting when we do the fund balance fund balance roll forward. Like a lot of these capital request items, these were the high priority.
These were the high priority. Well, let me rephrase it. There are safety issues that were identified by the facilities committee that I felt we could pay for.
That's what
Right.
was my question.
Yeah, not the big,
The
But-
big ones are still, at our second meeting in January, I'm planning on providing the committee with the facilities
Okay.
committee's recommendation And we're probably going to need at least 2 meetings
To go through
to
it.
go through it all, because it took us 4 meetings, Manny?
Correct.
To do the report. So it's going to take at least 1 or 2 for us to go through it and understand it. Once that happens, the committee makes a final decision, and then I call the architects back, and they will submit our recommendations to RIDE for the level, for
Yeah.
the funding.
Because I was going to say, I know, talking about our fund balance, kind of like we did with the, our sewer. I know we're not going to be able to pay for it all, but we should be seriously thinking about designating pieces of that,
Right.
whether it's 200,000 or
Yeah.
even 150,
For that.
and start designating
Well,
that.
And
So that's what we did.
Then
Yeah.
that's what this represents. This represents
Yeah.
what I'm comfortable with
Gotcha.
recommending to the committee that we take out of our fund balance right off the top. Everything else needs your input.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but even above and beyond, like, if we
Yeah,
still
there are
have, if we
something-
still have 750,000, we might
could
want to
put something.
seriously consider taking,
There wasn't a lot of other stuff that we could.
well, no, but
try to
we
tackle.
might want to start setting aside pieces to cover these big
Yes.
things,
Right.
because what we get from RIDE isn't going to cover the whole
No,
thing.
what's going to happen is the committee, when you see it, it's going to be how do we pay for it?
Right,
And once you've identified the priorities, we then need to meet with the council and the
Right.
budget committee to talk just about that, moving forward as to how we're going to, because if these things aren't done, a lot of them are safety issues. They're not what we call, if you remember the report, everything was 1 to 4, 4 being the best. We're talking about 1s and 2s, health and safety issues, which are all reimbursable by RIDE if it's categorized as
Oh,
health and
these are?
safety. These would all be,
Yeah.
I believe the vast majority of it would be
Health and
Okay.
safety, 40%.
Yeah. Very little of it was force, and everything that we thought we could take.
But I
out
agree.
of the
I think-
fund
I mean, I think what I'm saying is, like, if there's big items,
Right.
if we start setting, and if it's designated by us, it can be undesignated by us.
Right, just like we
but
did
if
with the
just-
septic.
Just like we
Same
did with the
thing.
septic,
And then we
just
had
start
it.
setting
Yeah.
aside pieces. And it may not be everything the town needs, but anything we can start
Yeah.
designating.
And I think once you see the whole
Report, then it'll be
you'll
easier to
that's
see
what
that.
this does.
Okay.
Again, think of it as cream, it takes really the top off, and then what you're left with are big ticket items. that
Okay, great.
address.
Yeah, and that's the big ticket now, are the ones that obviously are the concern. Okay. That was it for
This
me.
is a very minor question, but our unemployment insurance went up.
Yeah, well, we're adding it because
That's in conjunction with the positions
with the
that...
positions that we're removing.
We have to put it in for those
That's
positions.
the unemployment insurance.
Oh, I know. Doug, our Medicaid reimbursement that you always put in, what do you,
400,000,
thanks, that you always net with special ed?
that's correct.
You have another question?
No, I said that was my.
There is
real
also
question.
just a couple other items that maybe should be aware of, because I know there's a lot of line items and you may not know what to look for. Just some highlights. Salaries increased by 1.1%. Healthcare, as Carol brought out, due to savings that we were able to achieve from last year, putting towards this year, you don't see that big $300,000 or $200,000 hike that we've seen in years past for health insurance costs. Teacher pensions only increased by 1.6%. And the TIA-CREF, which is also part of the teacher pension, the second piece only went up 0.8%. So we achieved significant savings there. Unemployment, as Jerry mentioned, did go up. Transportation has gone up a little bit. We're in the process of seeking a new contract.
Oh, wow, that went up a lot.
We'll be going out to bid for that, but we have a 5% escalator in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
you
actually, if I could explain that one a little further, I suspect that this year's number is going to be a little higher, so I think it's distorting the year-to-year increase, but what we did build in there was a 2.5% increase based on the contract that we're negotiating, so that's going to definitely be our goal, to come in lower than that.
But we also have additional dollars in there for high school athletics. The cost to run the teams that have gone up because of being charged for wait times now.
Yeah, that's correct, and then we're also...
For what times?
Wait times, when the buses wait.
When they have to wait?
Oh,
For a
okay.
wait
Instead of
time.
just, it used to be just
Right.
Trips,
from.
right.
But now it's hourly from the time they get in the bus.
We also have a new middle school for transportation as well. Middle school.
For the teams that we get free to sponsor, we need to get bus transportation.
PD, that's just...
That's to reflect our proposal,
Yep, okay.
and there is an increase in their
Anyway, yeah.
understanding that we have to negotiate a contract with the teachers. As well as Council 94. I think those are the highlights.
Yep.
Again, answer any questions you may have.
Police and fire detail, is that
Yeah.
just a reallocation?
Yeah, if you look, the COA dictates that it now needs to go 2 lines below it on fire and police details.
Oh, when it was up in compliance?
I think that's a remnant from the days where they were mostly truancy type
Okay.
situations.
Yep.
And also tuition, if you look on page 2 or 3 of Doug's sheet, towards the bottom.
Private tuition?
Yeah, the tuition to other school districts, that's the Met and Rogers.
We know Met's building in that increase until they're at our full per pupil, and we do have a new...
But that went down.
No, just
the one
up
below.
18.5, yeah.
Right, you mentioned going down.
Tuition to
though.
private sources, that's special
That's our
education.
That's
out-of-district
the other
schools that
one.
we've been
Okay.
talking about.
Right.
Yep.
And that was another highlight, obviously. But this is being driven by the state, the cost of Rogers and that, as always. And that's something we have no control over.
So those co-taught classrooms in the afternoon,
Yeah?
are we comfortable that, because that's part of, that, are we just going to have the one teacher with that full classroom now?
The numbers that we're projecting, they're not that high at the elementary levels. We're talking 6 students in one class, 8 in another, 1 in one, and I'm going from one school to another. That was Pecasset. Ranger, I'm looking at 1 student in one grade, 6 in another.
Is there
2 in
students
another
per
grade.
class on IEPs?
Yeah, 9.
Ooh,
They're
nice,
not
right.
large numbers. Fort Barton, 1, 5 for K and 1, 5 for grade 2, and 7 for grade 3.
But I
And-
guess, doesn't it depend on the type of,
The question is, would we like, I'm sure if you asked my 3 elementary principals, they would tell you we would like to have that there, but that would mean an additional teacher that you'd have to bring on with benefits. And talking to Sarah and Candace, they don't believe
well, it wouldn't be, it would be keeping the teachers that we already have, right? Because we
Yeah,
already
but
have.
we don't have the numbers to,
How much of a drop are we expecting next year in the students with IEPs?
we're overstaffed now. Okay, we looked at the number, we talked about special education.
Uh-huh.
I had the meetings, I said we have to reduce our costs, and that's the result. We're also talking about reducing 1 at the middle school, 1 position at the middle school, and one at the middle school, 1 at the middle school, 1 at the middle school, 1 at Pecasset, and 2 at Ranger. That's the reduction from where we are now.
And you think you can still provide the services?
So, if not, we can adjust, we can come back to you, but it's aggressive, but
Yeah,
we're doing
I
our
mean,
best to keep our costs down. Jeff.
yeah. I'm just concerned, I'm concerned that, you have a half a co-taught
But
model.
keep in mind, in the middle school and high school, you don't have co-taughts in science.
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, because we've invested historically, we've spent more money at our elementary levels for special ed to provide that 1 teacher with 7 kids in a co-taught model versus maybe, 10 kids or higher at the high school, depending on the size of the middle school. Again, there's no decision, you don't have to.
But the middle school and the high school, they don't
Our
have those
co-taughts just for
co-taught
ELA
in
and math.
math.
Just for ELA and math, that's correct. And maybe a sprinkling in some of the other areas, depending if a teacher's free. You might see a teacher get a science class or a social studies class, but it's not across the board.
I would just like to say one thing as far as the co-taught classrooms at the elementary level, and I'm speaking from Ranger as well as the other two elementary schools. The co-taught classroom provides services for the kids all day. Is it something we're above what's required, but it's also providing the classroom environment for the kids to get services all day in all subjects. We reduce at Ranger, we're going to reduce 2 teachers. It's going to affect the type of service we provide our special needs kids. Because we're not going to have that teacher working together as a team. And if you want to see teams work together as the way co-taught was designed, come to an elementary classroom. Both teachers are teaching. They work side by side, and we're getting a lot for what we're investing. Is it expensive? Yes, it's expensive. But I think we're seeing the results of the kids as the kids move through the elementary schools for the services that we're providing.
Bill, is co-taught 3rd and 4th?
Co-taught is K through 4.
Oh, K through 4. So which grades wouldn't have the co-taught anymore?
I'd have to look
Okay,
at
that's fine.
it.
You can get back to me for
Yeah,
this.
I just have it by school.
Yeah,
But the numbers I'm looking at, for example, at Picasso, we're projecting 6 students in kindergarten.
Yep.
And I think we were talking about moving them to Ranger. So you have 6 students in kindergarten and 1 student in grade 1. So if you kept a co-taught for grade 1, you'd have 1 student and 2 teachers all day.
Right.
Right, so,
I mean,
Be interested to see the breakdown of those numbers, kind of, that I could sort of
I'll
absorb
give
a
you
little
our
bit more.
I can give you our projections and
Yeah.
for our next meeting.
Right now at Ranger, we have half-time teachers in kindergarten and 1st grade. So our special needs teacher is half-time in kindergarten, and then she spends the other half of her day in 1st grade.
Okay.
We have a full-time teacher in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Because that's our 4 teachers for the 5 grades.
So half-day works in kindergarten and 1st grade?
Only because we only have them half-day. It doesn't...
Well, 1st grade you have all of them.
1st grade, some of those kids are in the room with a teacher and an aide. In the afternoon, right now, the afternoon, the teacher goes to kindergarten in the afternoon. There's an aide in the classroom helping out the teacher. Now, same thing as a teacher.
Could we have an aide in those classrooms?
Some
We have an aide in 1st grade.
Some have.
Could you have an aide in the
Some
classrooms
students
where we're
may have-
removing them?
Some students may have aides with them.
Okay.
So, maybe, I'd like to hear what other people think, but it would maybe be helpful to have an explication of what exactly we have now, what we're proposing we're going to, and what the budgetary impact of
Yeah, that'd be
sort
helpful.
of either direction is, so that we...
Well, the direction would be 300,000 back into the budget. If you brought them all back, I can tell that's right off the
but
top.
I think what I would like to see, I mean, I can understand you don't, if you only have 1 student on an IEP in a classroom, you don't need to double your
Right, yeah.
your
No,
teaching staff.
that's-
However, if you have 10 on an IEP out of 19 students, well, then that might be a worthwhile
For
investment.
example, we're talking about having 1 teacher at Picasso next year for 8 students in grade 4. 1 co-taught classroom, a teacher and a special ed
Full
teacher.
day or half?
Full day.
And that's, I think, what I would like to know.
Right, but so, yeah, so
No problem.
those numbers would be
No
helpful.
problem, the cost.
Yeah, because it's hard to
Yep, I understand.
visualize that,
Exactly.
how, like 6 out of 20, or
Not a
that
problem.
kind of thing. Is that what you're saying,
Yep.
Carol?
I just,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bissett. Go ahead.
I just need to see a shift now, and coming from special education, my first 20 years, I certainly would have a hard time not supporting a best scenario model. And I think that's what's being discussed right now, is what model should be supported. When we talk about, I'm talking about philosophies and models, though, you're not going to be able to measure dollars and cents with it. And I'm going to shift right away to the model at the high school, and we'll shift from special education, because my guidance department at the high school is closely related to a model. It's a model that I've got feedback from 17 high schools right at Christmas, and 10 of them have our model. 7 of them have our ratios. Our model has always been in place. It has either been an administrator or a department chair for one of those positions. That has helped out administratively at the high school, whether it's guidance, social, emotional, or whether it's allowing the vice principal to concentrate in the discipline area in lacking a dean of students for all those years in the late 90s and the early 2000s, where that was a budget item that was quickly cut when we did have to do the budget. Speaking of the budget, over the last 10 or 12 years, I feel strongly that when the district has had needs in other grade levels, and Mr. Urk has asked me to do the right thing, I've looked closely at all the departments in the high schools, and we've suffered a cut teaching-wise in every department except English in the last 10 years. I know because I recommended them. If the superintendent says find another way to do something because it'll help benefit the district, and the numbers add up that way, then we have to do it that way. But when we start talking about models, the model that we have at the high school right now, and it's linked close to special education, because the guidance staff supports their 100-plus IEP students, 50 students with 504s, social emotional issues. They act in lieu of social workers, and I'm not going to go on and on. But I do know we're not the only district that has this model. But if we're going to talk about philosophies, and if it's co-taught classrooms versus a resource model in special education, then I really need to advocate for the support of an administrative guidance model for our high school, which is similar to other high schools. And I think it's had a lot to do with some of the rates of growth that we've had. We have a lot of depressed students in our high school. However, we went from a moderate to a leading high school last year. The guidance department was acknowledged in our last NEAS report. I think they were the only department. But I know we're getting off track, and I'll stop now. But if we're going to talk about philosophies and best practices instead of finances, I feel it's important that I speak to the high school. Thank you.
Just one further thing before we move off the co-taught model and that type of discussion. RTI is a situation that you're seeing a lot of students receiving services through our remedial classes and not being identified for special needs. As we reduce, if we go down that area and we reduce our special ed teachers that are in classrooms providing help for those kids that are being identified as RTI students, we're going to need additional services as our remedial teachers. We still have the same number of students with the same needs. We're going to look at how we're going to service those students. So a lot of our RTI students are in our co-taught classrooms. They're not being identified as special needs students as we go through the RTI process, which is a long process, which those students are getting additional help by our remedial teachers. But they're also getting the additional help from our special needs teachers that are in those classrooms. A lot of those special needs teachers in the classrooms are providing services to non-special needs kids. And that's what makes that learning environment so valuable for those kids. So as we talk about numbers decreasing in special ed, we need to also talk about numbers increasing in remedial, because those kids are still in those classrooms.
Amy?
Hi, thank you. I am a co-teacher at the Cassett School. I currently have 9 students with IUPs. I have an eligibility meeting later this month to determine if a 10th student will qualify for special ed services and supports. And as Mr. Rarick will tell you, I'm sure, special ed numbers fluctuate. We sometimes get students that come in and register with IEPs. The RTI process is a long process, so it's not unusual by 3rd or 4th grade for those students to have gone through the lengthy RTI process and finally be identified as having a disability. One of the strengths of the co-taught model is it allows the teachers to work together and collaborate together to meet the needs of all of the students in the classroom. We talk a lot about differentiating instruction, and having 2 teachers there, it multiplies your ability to differentiate, more than 2 times. And if we shift to a different model, it really won't be co-teaching, because co-teaching is a partnership where you plan together during your planning periods, and you work together to develop the lessons and decide who's teaching what part of the lesson and how we're going to teach it. And as Mr. Cabral stated, we do a lot of work in the classroom with children who are struggling but are not identified as needing special education supports and services. So where I understand if there's only one student, you certainly don't necessarily need a full-time special ed teacher in that classroom all day long. It also depends on the needs of the student that you're talking about, because you could have 10 students with very mild needs and maybe they only need a little additional support in written language, or you could have 10 students that are reading 2 or more years below grade level, also are 2 or more years below grade level in math and need a lot more support. One of the concerns I have is if we're not providing support for the students in science, what is that going to do to our science performance? You're looking at increasing science support at the middle school and high school level. If the special education teachers aren't able to provide students the support they need in science, what might that do to our student achievement in that area? Because if I have a disability in reading, it doesn't go away because now you're teaching science. If I have a disability that impacts my written language, it's still going to hurt me when it's still going to impact me when I'm doing science, when I'm doing math. And so that's one of the strengths of the co-taught model that we have. It becomes very challenging when special education teachers have to go between grade levels because we don't have the planning time to meet with the different grade level teachers. We have to split our time so we have half as much time to plan with the teachers that we're working with. And that does have an impact on the students. I understand and recognize that, there's only so much money in the budget and we have to make the decisions that we have to make in the best interest of the students, but that's something that I think you should keep in mind because, as Mr. Cabral said, there are benefits to all of the students having the co-taught model, not just the special education students in that classroom.
Thank you.
Bill, when Sarah and Newport County Regional made these recommendations, I would think they would have looked at the level of service required. Okay, just asking.
And I'll have them here next Tuesday.
They could come, that would be
Yeah, that they weren't.
No,
They would have been
here.
looking at the types of
Right, the
services.
sheet I'm looking at here, and it doesn't identify any student per se.
Well, no, it
But you
shouldn't.
can, for example, next year, there'll be just one group of students, because we tried to shift the last few years, our special needs co-taughts out of CASET, because they have such a high concentration of free and reduced hotline students. We didn't want to, we tried to lighten that load a little bit, so we shifted them to Fort Barton. So next year, if we continue along those lines, grade 4 at CASET, there'll be just one co-taught, and again, with 8 students, and one co-taught teacher all day, and one teacher, regular ed teacher. For Barton, there is no change. Ranger is the one that would suffer, would experience the biggest change because they would be losing teachers, but they also have lower numbers. We're talking a projected increase of 19 students for 5 grades that need special ed services, co-taughts.
Yeah, maybe if we could get the numbers that Jerry said, and then maybe have Sarah come
And I'll have it all
talk.
for you. In the
Because
middle school,
Sarah's
in the
recommending
middle school,
it.
we're eliminating the behavioral support program. So that's why we're losing a teacher there.
And is that because the numbers of students
Yes,
who
the
need
number of
that
students
has dropped?
We don't need it, and we're going to eliminate it. So that's why that's gone. So when you see what I see,
Right.
the numbers of
Right.
goals, and I understand about the co-taughts, but keep in mind, if we're talking about philosophy, I'd want to have co-taughts K-12 in science and in social studies to help all the kids. There's no debate over the merits of what the co-taught model brings. The question is one of cost and sustainability. When you're looking at 19 students and 18 students for our 3 schools for the co-taughts, and to try to justify to keep your staffing levels the same to the public, we're not, we also have a fiduciary responsibility as well as one for our kids. And that's what I'm trying to provide you, as also to provide the balance and the needs that our children need
But
as well.
Newport County Regional signed off on this, correct?
Yes, they made
Okay.
the recommendation.
So-
It's done in conjunction.
So I think that would be
And I'll
helpful
ask
to hear
Sarah
from
and
Sarah,
Candace to
because, I
comment.
mean, they're the experts in the field, so it would be nice to
I'll ask them to come, but I'll
be
also
able to
have
ask
the
them
backup.
questions as well.
Jerry,
Thank you.
does anyone else have anything they want to say? Okay, yes? Come on.
Hi, my name is Karen Turner. Both my children came through the school system here, and we had much success. Both did very well. I'm a nurse wreck, so please excuse that. But I did feel compelled to come tonight when I saw that you were considering kind of rocking the boat a little bit financially with the guidance department especially. There are many things, as Mr. Fazette said, that don't show up on a spreadsheet that you really need to know about. My daughter, very independent young lady, she's with me tonight, very self-assured. However, she didn't get that way by accident. She did get that way by support of her guidance counselor through high school, who guided her to take the classes she needed to take to be successful. Also offered her many opportunities in leadership, in taking courses for absolutely free at BCC, 0. All of those credits transferred, all of them transferred to her current school. She's at the University of Tampa and doing quite well. It didn't cost the school anything. It's maybe something that you need to know, and maybe you don't know. Everybody talks AP, 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 but from what I heard tonight, half of the kids fail. So, when they're taking the online courses. So maybe I misunderstood how it was presented, and if that's the case, I apologize. She didn't fail any of her AP courses here. She had the support here that she needed when things got rough, when things were very, very stressful, applying to colleges, applying for scholarships, trying to keep her grades up and maintain those grades so she could graduate in the top 10 of her class. All of those things, guess what? She didn't want to come to her mom. Her mom's working full-time. I couldn't be there every single second to help her, but the guidance department was. She would call and say, you got 5 minutes because I'm kind of freaking out. And guess what? They made the time for her. That doesn't show up on any spreadsheet. Now, if you're going to ask the guidance people to now do the job of the clerk and their job, now you're bumping into the time that they have with the students. Now, maybe it is a huge amount of money, that you have to contend with, and I realize you all have a difficult job, that you have to balance, finances with services, but, they help the kids who want to go to college, and they help the kids who don't have food. They help the kids whose parents say, hey, great, you turned 18, see you later. Those things don't show up on the spreadsheet. They might show up as dropping out of high school because now they have to get a job. But the guidance department does what they can to help those students stay in school and better their lives, join the military. They guide them in all different directions because there is not a social worker there to help them. They might not qualify for those type of services. So guess what? Your guidance department does that. These are things that are offered, and they're not necessarily in the job description. They do that as a service to our kids. And although my kids are finished here, they've all graduated, thank you God. Everybody got through and got the piece of paper they needed. However, I felt like you guys needed to know what was not on the balance sheet. You needed to know those extra things. They were a wonderful, wonderful asset, and I'm kind of a proponent of, if it's not broke, you shouldn't try to fix it. You shouldn't try to mess with it, and it's definitely not broke. So that's my 2 cents, and thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
Hi, it's me again.
Hi.
Hi, me again.
Amy Mullen, president of the Tiverton Teachers Union. I have a letter. Last meeting you had discussing this issue, I had discussed and addressed several concerns that we had, and I committed them to writing and would like to present them to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
And many of them are, the same concerns that
Thank you.
Did you have an opportunity to meet with Amy, by the way? We were gonna, yes, okay, thanks.
The superintendent and I meet frequently.
Thank you.
I know.
Probably far more often than you would like.
And the budget is reflective of,
Okay, I know that was something you had said.
let's just say we don't agree.
I was going to say, just because we meet frequently doesn't mean
Come to a consensus.
Many things, but
That's fine, I just know that was something that we had mentioned at the letter
Yes,
meeting.
and, I'm still working with the superintendent to see what other possibilities there may be, other areas that we could look at. But I think the main concern that we have is the necessity of cutting a high school, or cutting a guidance counselor. As Mr. Fizzett mentioned, the guidance department was commended in the NEASC visit, and I don't think any other department was. Our guidance counselors do an awful lot. I've, put in the letter different cuts that have happened to guidance over the past 3 years or so as far as the clerk's positions go. There used to be 2 clerks in the guidance office, now they're down to 1.5, and now we're proposed further reducing that to 1. That puts an additional burden on the counselors and takes the time away that they have to deal with the students' needs. Cutting the community service coordinator position also places an additional burden on the guidance counselors. And we're concerned about how we're going to provide for our students. One of the things I mentioned in the letter is that Tiverton ranks number 10 in the state for violent crimes. That really surprised me.
the town of Tiverton.
Yes. Yeah, not our school.
Oh, no.
Our town as a whole, although our town is filled with many wonderful people, there is that element in the town, and I think that is an indication of the social needs that we have, and that's a need that our guidance counselors meet and address and work with. As a teacher at the elementary level, I see the guidance counselors dealing with, DCYF and family issues and things like that. And when students feel safe and secure and aren't worried about where their next meal is coming from or are they safe, then they can focus on their academics and thrive. And that's what we want for all of our students. So I've detailed it in the letter. I hope you'll take the time to read it. And if you have any questions, give me a call or email, and I'll continue to hack away at Mr. Rurick.
Is there anyone else?
I just have a couple of things here. A lot of writing here, but I'm not really sure where I want to go with this because I don't want to beat a dead horse. I know how hard I work and my department works, and I think everybody at this table knows that too because you've experienced it one way or another. But I have a couple of concerns. One, that this proposal here is basically violating a contract too, so I think that's something that Amy and Bill are going to have to work with, so that's a problem.
It's mentioned.
Because if you haven't budgeted for legal fees, then that could be a problem. I hate to see that happen, but... No, I'm just saying that's a reality, because it's, we're going into negotiations and it's violating our contract. The community service requirement, is that going to be eliminated as a graduation requirement?
There's no plan to.
No, so then that will become somebody else's job within my department, is that what you're thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's going to be negotiated
like
too?
you would
At the middle school.
student grades.
Excuse me?
You'd ask the child to produce the evidence, just like you check their grades.
Okay, so if they don't,
Then you
then,
would contact the parent.
so it's going to become bigger than that?
But you would contact the
graduation
parent
requirement.
even with the community service director. If the student was lacking in hours, I'm assuming they contact the guidance counselor.
Well, I think it
and
was
the counselor contacts the
more
parent.
involved than that, her job, I think.
I'm not asking you to place them.
Okay.
Could we, I guess that would be part of the contract negotiations, but we
Right,
certainly could talk
exactly.
about stipending that as well, because we stipend it at the middle school.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
there's a way to do it.
Okay,
Well,
I
this is
just,
what I'm saying, all this has to be negotiated because it is a
Community
job, it's a
service
change in
isn't
a job
negotiable.
description.
Community service is not in the contract. It's not negotiable.
No, but if somebody's job description is changing, it has to be negotiated.
Okay, so
My
noted.
concern is also as a taxpayer and as a parent of a high school student, that I'd have a hard time supporting this budget, if it had anything to do with cutting any guidance programs. I would have to. I go to bat for everyone when I need to go to bat, and I support people, and I support programs, but if there's a budget with cuts in the guidance programs, I feel strongly about what we do, and we service every single student, every single parent, every single teacher that comes through our door. We're not just servicing 8 to 10 students, we're serving everyone, and not just the top 10 students, we have everyone. So I'd have a hard time supporting a budget that had any guidance cuts in it. And there's a lot of taxpayers also in the school system that probably wouldn't support it.
So they'd support a zero?
No, but I
Is that what
think
you're
there's
saying?
many other areas.
So that's going to be the,
Bill,
so you're saying people...
I think there's other areas.
We're not, that's fine, you can support it, that's fine.
Yeah.
We're not going to start.
Go ahead.
I'm
arguing.
talking as a taxpayer and a
That's fine,
parent
yep,
also.
yep.
Because I know there are other areas in the system that can be looked at.
And that's what
If
we're
the committee is willing to
yep.
look at them. That would be great. Also, the computer clerk like Amy said, it went from full-time to part-time. I have the clerk's job description here, and it would take me a little while to read what the job description is, but she assists in creating the master schedule along with me and no one else. So that person will go away. I'm not sure who's going to pick that up. Organizing and updating iParent, editing and student inputting bios, scheduling parent-teacher conferences, copying and distributing teacher and student schedules, report cards, transcript work. I could go on and on and on. All the private school books for the whole district go through that one person. I'm not sure who's going to pick that up. It's a big, big responsibility. I mean, it was a stretch when it went to part-time. I had discussions with my principal and superintendent about it, that I was concerned that it was going to part-time. Now it's going away. It's going to really cause an issue I can't speak to Council 94, but it's going to cause a problem in my department. I just wanted to make that known too.
That's the half-time clerk job description? Mm-hmm. Do we have the one for the full-time clerk? The other one?
That's one.
Okay, thanks.
No, it's just one for the other two clerks in the office.
Thank you.
There's just one other thing before I sit down, and I know Nancy may want to speak on this. My concern is the math, science, where this is going, like why the funding for this math, science, these 2/5 math, science position at the high school, because the math, science department heads already teach a reduced load. They teach 3 classes, so they could easily pick up a 5th. So, and I think they want to be in the classroom. I'm not going to speak for Nancy. So, as far as that last proposal with what money you needed as far as 2/5 math and science, I'm not quite sure that's necessary at this time, that funding is needed. And after we look at the master schedule, we could probably take a look at other numbers too, to try to see if we could maybe pick up another 5th, but I don't know if you need to put that up.
Yeah. Yeah, I can address that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Nancy Carrera. For those who don't know me, all of you know me. I had your children, pretty much all of your children. There is a ramp-up program. We tried one before, which was designed for the kneecaps. Quite frankly, it was to get them to be successful for the graduation requirement. Now we have a ramp-up, which is an eligible one. The point is, for our lowest level students, we have problems with attendance. They have any number of reasons why they're not performing as well. The co-taught model for sure, but this is more of a partnership. 6 days, there's a 6-day cycle, 5 days in eligible 1. Now we're talking general level or lowest level, and 3 additional classes with a classroom teacher. It's me, it's Miss Uriel, and we teach what has been taught. What else we do is we do the tests that they've missed. We finish the quiz that they didn't get to finish. They didn't do their homework. We get to do it with them. We've really found it to be very successful. Certainly one of the problems we have with these kids is absenteeism. They don't like school, they're not successful at school. This has been, it's in its infancy. We've only gone half a year. But at this point, we can say it's been successful. Next year, the desire would be to continue that with geometry. However, Algebra 2, I feel there's absolutely no need. I mean, you're only going to test in part for Algebra 1 and geometry. We have only so many resources. You can't, I would love to have all grades that way. I would love, as Amy said, to have all classes have co-taught, and Bill said the same thing. That's not the reality. Algebra 1, geometry would be great. Come Algebra 2, quite frankly, they don't make it in Algebra 2 as a junior, come back senior year, do it again. But if you ramp up their freshman year, if you ramp up in their sophomore year, I think we'll be targeting where the greatest weaknesses are. You need Algebra 1 in order to be successful in so many fields. When you're in any of the construction areas, the one thing they want to have is Algebra 1. And not you've had Algebra 1 and got a D, but to be successful. So it isn't just for the part. It isn't just because it would help out the Algebra 2 teachers. It's because it would help our students. And I think that's where we need to target our resources. However, I would be hotly opposed to have something as noble as this, as ideal as this is, to sacrifice guidance. I mean, I don't believe that it should be that kind of trade-off. I wish we'd had that years ago in math. I wish we had that in science before. But we kept hearing, get the scores up. And how would you like us to do that? I can go on, the things that have been thrust upon us in the math department, as have other departments, but we did it. We've rewritten curriculum, I don't know how many times. BEP, what was the other one? New standards, Rhode Island standards. Now we have the Common Core. The common thing is everything keeps changing, and as do we. And we're willing to do that. But to say that you're going to do this, to help those few students in math, in Algebra 1, yes, that's wonderful. But we need the help for all of the students at the high school. And guidance serves all of the high school.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Kathy Winston, I'm a guidance counselor at the high school. First of all, I wanted to thank Erin, and I'm going to try to keep it together because it was so heartfelt. I know you were looking at numbers, and that's what you need to do, and you looked at other schools and what do other high school guidance counselors do. And I think, again, we need to look at things that are not on the paper. So I just want to name some of the things that we have done recently in the last couple of years that most high school guidance counselors don't do. One, we established a food bank. Many people don't know that many of our students, even if they're on free and reduced lunch, do not have food. We keep food in our office, but we started a food bank because we had kids who were not eating in the morning, not eating at lunch, and going home to no food. So we have a food bank. You all know, you've all come, you've supported us. We're the only school that, in Rhode Island that I know of, that provides a college fair. We've been doing it for 15 years. We do it at night, we include parents, and because of that, we've kept it on our campus because we know that a vast majority of our kids are first generation going to college. And their parents, and they are afraid, and they don't know how to follow it through. So they're very comfortable coming here, and I feel, when we can give you statistics, that more and more our kids are applying to four-year colleges, going to four-year colleges, and going outside New England to approach other places that they never would have heard of. Like my friend over there, who's at the University of Tampa, and because of all the courses she took here in her AP courses and at BCC, dual enrollment, she is considered, as a freshman, 3 credits short as junior at the University of Tampa in the honors program. I have another student the same way at the University of Mass Dartmouth in the honors program. Again, no cost to them because they took courses at BCC. Some other things that we do straight A lunch. We think it's really important to recognize those kids who are outstanding, and we do that every quarter. We have a pizza party, we give them certificates, we recognize them because it's important to do. We do scholarships. We make sure our kids can afford to go to school. We run events at night. We do financial aid nights. We bring in experts to teach our parents again how to fill out the FAFSA because most of them are afraid of how to do that. How are they going to pay for college now that their students got into college? We have initiated a freshman orientation program for parents and families because we know that's when we lose kids. Are they going to be comfortable in this school? Are their parents going to be comfortable in this school? They come at night, they take a tour, they walk away from here, and they're proud of our school. We do so many things that are not in our contract, that we feel strongly that are for all students. And if we can make all students feel comfortable, feel safe, we do things like our crisis intervention. Most high schools don't have that. Most districts don't have that. So when we hear of a student that's cutting themselves, a student who's in danger of hurting themselves or hurting somebody else, we have something in place. We meet as a team, crisis intervention team, guidance counselor, school psychologist, and an administrator. And we set aside everything else we do in that day to make sure that student is safe. And whether it's contacting parents, and maybe that's all we need, or we're hospitalizing that student. Those are the kind of things you're not going to see on paper, and I would love to talk about it more. I love my job. I am passionate about my job, and I share that with the guidance department at the high school. And for us to lose somebody now, with all the things that Sally mentioned at the last meeting, our society is changing. More and more of the problems are in school. We're seeing more and more students living with their grandparents. We're seeing more and more students living with single parents. We are providing those services to make sure all students are safe, all students are successful, and leave here feeling proud of graduating from Tiverton High School. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have anything?
I have something. My name's Dave Perry, and I'm a newly elected town councilor.
Congratulations.
I'm actually a liaison to the school. I'm not going to talk anything about schools, but I do have something I've heard twice tonight about people being hungry and kids not eating. I run one of the fifth largest food pantry in the state of Massachusetts, in Florida. If there's a need in the school systems, well, if the guidance counselors want to get the name out, it's the Greater Florida Community Food Pantry. We also service Rhode Island. We service Tiverton. So if there's a need for food, which we know there's a need for food all over, but if there's a need in Tiverton, we gladly welcome those people to our food pantry. And if the schools would need food for breakfasts or whatever it may be, great. We're also able to give you cases, and give you cases of cereal, and give you a case of peanut butter, and give you items for the students to also have breakfast. So if that's just an option for you.
Thank you, Dave.
I just wanted to put it out there. If you need it, we're there.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, so now I have my little presentation. As you know, I'm a special needs teacher, so I had to make my collage in the front, because when I look at budgets, I look way past the numbers, just like when I look at if a student's succeeding or not, I don't just look at a test score. So, first of all, everyone wants to know the numbers as they look at the budget. They'll say, how many children do you have? You're losing numbers. Of the 32 cities and towns in the state, 32 lost numbers. We were one of the 7 that grew. So Tiverton is growing, the children are coming, so that's good. We built beautiful schools. And of our schools, 3 got 1s, meaning they're the best condition, and then the others got 3s, which is a thing to be proud of in this town, because this town invested in those schools. So as you look at that collage in front of you, this is a few of the things, just a few I picked up quickly. Pennsylvania Perfection, the band from Mr. R.L.'s, dedicated parent volunteers in all our schools, a collaborative effort with Rogers when the Tiger Vikings won the state championship in lacrosse, boat building that went to the Providence Boat Show, and Mr. Eric got sick of seeing all the different boats that came. And then we have this beautiful bookcase over here that they also did in their project-based learning engineering department. Then we have, with Mr. Phillips and Mr. Fenston, Good Deeds After School at TMS. They collected food for the food pantry. Fort Barton Blue Ribbon Award, of course. Gloria Chris Drama Department with The Wizard of Oz. The Department of Technology project when they built the electric car, and then the next year it was solar powered. And then we have the Adam Tracy's art department. I couldn't find the picture of Cohog Man, but we always remember him. And the most important one was the headline when our kids graduated. and it says, "Grads, above all, be kind." Okay? And that's what comes into the community service. When Mr. Fazette stands on the stage and talks about community service, we have 75 hours mandated to graduate. They go way beyond that. And then we have in our strategic plan to foster that and strengthen that community service. It's in our strategic plan. We voted on this and adopted this. So now we're taking a community service person away, and as they said, the responsibility is probably going to go to guidance. And we're taking the clerk away from guidance. And the Board of Regents in 2003 said that we had to include strategies for creating more personalized learning environment in the high schools. That's one of the good things RIDE did, was to say we have to have personalized, and that's just what they said. At Durfee High School, we had a motto: if the kids don't feel safe and secure, no learning will occur. It's just what you people all just said, and that's the truth. So now every person in this high school has to have someone they can go to. And it's a small school, so when the kid comes through the door and something's wrong, someone knows. They look at their face and they'll say, "Hey, did you see so-and-so? Let's bring them in. Let's get them to guidance. Let's take care of what's wrong." The one thing I can't support in this budget, and I can support everything else, is the cutting of that guidance position. Because you're going to cut community service, as I said, you're cutting a clerk and giving them more responsibility. So I have to say, this budget's the lowest budget we've ever had. I've been doing this a long time, Mr. Perry will agree. A .9 is amazing. And I can certainly ask Mr. Fieri, what will the guidance bring this up to?
Depends on which combination of positions, but I think...
Just the guidance?
Upwards, it would probably bring it to 1.2%.
Just putting the guidance back in? 1.2%. I can certainly go to this town and fight for 1.2% with all-day K in here, plus the help for the science and the math that I agree we put in here last time. I totally agree with that. But I'm just saying that guidance is very important to everyone has talked about it, parents have talked about it. I know K through 12 even didn't used to have it too much in the elementaries, but now, you know, we do. And Mr. Fazette mentioned many things. Did you want to say anything else about it, Mr. Fazette, that you talked about before? Yeah. So that's where I stand with this budget. And when we were just at the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, the Assistant Deputy Commissioner, David Abbott, said, make sure you get as close to 4 as you can this year, because you're all going to need it. With all the other mandates coming down, we never go close to 4 in this community, because we know we're not going to get the vote, and we can't ask the people, the taxpayers, to put out all that money. But the 1.1 or 2 that you're asking for, I would be very comfortable with, and thank you. Anybody else? If anybody has a picture of Cohog, man, send it to me, please, because I have it on my phone, but I couldn't print it. I'm very upset.
We'll get you.
Will you get him back, please? I want him in the foyer, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, what do you want to do?
So we have one more meeting. That'll meet the deadline.
You submit a preliminary budget.
Okay,
Subject-
15th, right?
We have one budget, we have one meeting.
And
before
they're
that.
meeting, I think, on Thursday, so
We have to-
we'll get a better idea then of when we're going to have to go before them, you guys.
Well, we don't, yeah, they have to meet first, but
Yeah.
by charter, we have, I don't know who we submitted to, I mean, I'll give it to you.
Right.
But after our next meeting next week, we have to have something in writing, preliminary, to them, subject, we can change it up until...
Right, so, but they'll usually get together with you guys sooner rather than later, I don't even remember.
Second or third meeting?
We usually meet with the budget committee historically, not till early March.
Oh, okay, so they save you.
We're usually last.
Okay.
But we'll have our joint meeting with the council and the budget
There should
committee
be,
and us.
by charter, there should be a joint meeting
There has to be by law.
scheduled, I think,
Yeah.
soon.
Do you know, Mr. Perry?
Well, I submitted the schedule back in December, and I believe you came before us twice last year.
I think we did last year.
And I think you are scheduled for the 15th,
Of January?
if they stick with my schedule.
Of January?
That's just for the preliminary.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have to have it in on the 15th.
Yes, and I think...
Not show up at the 15th.
I think you're scheduled for I know they're meeting this week for their first meeting.
Thursday.
Oh, is that going to be for the joint one, or
No,
just
that's
those?
just-
Okay.
No, just us.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm assuming someone will tell me.
Yeah, I think you have to get a first You're next Thursday.
Yeah, we'll have a preliminary budget to talk about.
Thanks, Dave.
If it's the
Thank you.
15th,
Thank you,
we'll go on
Mr.
the
Perry.
15th. I guess it's better earlier rather than...
Well, you'll go again.
Oh,
Yeah,
we always
because
do.
of course we will.
If I remember right, Dave, didn't we just have like a real preliminary conversation?
Yeah.
That's what it was.
That was the first one, and then the
Just a
second one
budget.
was maybe a little more detailed.
And I think that's the one to meet the state law requirement, yeah.
The three of us together.
The three of us, the three
Meets the state
bodies
law.
need to meet.
Meets the-
I don't think the three of us need
No,
to.
the
I think the
bodies.
charter
The
says
charter
this.
dictates the bodies.
Yes.
Right.
But what Dave is saying was that we normally, in times we've gone more than just twice.
Yeah.
That's
You
fine.
know, the battle days go like every week, but hopefully this year will just be a couple meetings. And as soon as I find out.
So at the next meeting, you'll have some job descriptions, you'll
At the
have
next meeting.
Sarah,
Next meeting, job descriptions, breakdown of
IEP numbers,
projection of IEPs.
You'll invite Sarah to come
elementary schools.
talk?
Sarah, I'll also
and
have.
whoever else she
costs,
wants to bring.
Total cost. I won't see the teacher's name, but it'll be teacher one, teacher, because
That's
it's, you know, if you put one back, you just put the dollar in. And then also backup for the VHS that Carol asked for that we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
All the schools in Rhode Island, what the scores were by class.
Yeah, that would be great.
And the total number was 68% pass
Okay,
for all of Rhode Island.
okay, for the AP
For
only.
all kids that took it,
You took AP?
68%.
Okay,
pass.
great.
What job description?
And
I
job
wanted the
descriptions for
the clerk and the other office
and the
personnel.
office personnel, and I think that's it.
We'll also get the roll forward of the fund balance.
And the fund
Yes.
balance.
Fund balance, yeah. That would be good.
And afterwards, we'll start talking about the facilities report, because that's like,
Facilities
because that's like
report's gonna be-
plenty.
That's going to be a separate meeting.
Yes.
That's going to be
I think so, too.
27th.
I think so, too.
And I'm going to try to keep that agenda kind of free. just
Yeah, I
so we
think so,
talk
too.
about that.
Okay, good.
It's just time consuming to go through each one
I agree.
and explain what we felt it was.
But we need to understand it, so that's probably a good idea, just to have one meeting.
And it's to educate you, the committee, because you got to make the final choices
What we want to do.
as to really long-term. In other words, once we identify items, and that's our top priority, for example, then we have to be able to speak to that for the next however long until we get the money for it.
Right.
So it's...
Did you have something else you needed to add, Steve? Or Lynn? Do you have something else you wanted to add? No?
No, I'm just, my question was what was, and it was answered. I know we had grown a little bit this year on our ET scores. We had decreased last year a little bit.
Oh,
And
okay.
in relation to what some of the online scores were, it was probably about a 5 or 6% differential.
Okay, so wasn't that,
Something that, if I remember, that wasn't the discussion.
yeah, okay.
And that line item there for the AP, the virtual high school is 10,000?
That's correct.
Okay.
How many students with that service? Like 10,000?
Projecting 6 to 8, depending on, based on what other schools have told us, looking at a small cohort at the beginning.
All right, so you'll continue to meet with Amy.
As always.
You'll get those, you get that.
Happy he looks!
Regardless of budget.
You get that information to us, and,
Just one more question.
yeah.
As we were talking about guidance, what, it's responsibility of the guidance department to develop a schedule, right?
Excuse me?
Schedule.
Yeah.
Who does
Schedule for use, what's the response? I didn't hear the question.
Is this...
Who does
Developing
scheduling?
schedules for high school, is this responsibility of the guidance department?
No, actually, in the job description, it is the department chair, principal, and a clerk.
Now, keep in mind, with Aspen coming on, we have money built into training modules, so all the guidance counselors at the middle school and high school will know how to schedule. In addition to Mrs. Nicholas and the principal, we're going to have really triple redundancy.
We going to be using that for next year?
We are going to have it online.
We get an update some point, not soon, but
We're
just at some
we're in the process now of just starting it,
yeah.
going to it.
Just get us an
But
update
We
eventually.
learned from School Max
Oh, yeah.
there's going to be multiple people in multiple schools, so if someone retires, gets hurt,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
leaves, we'll have enough people in place that know how to schedule.
Yeah, maybe we could put that on for
So
just
that's-
not
No, but that's just
soon,
enough.
but
Yeah,
like
that's fine.
March or
Now-
April.
And by then Al will be able to
Yeah.
give us
By
an
then, we
update.
should be well, March or
Yeah,
April.
you can
we're
just
gonna be
update us
well
on how
into-
that's going and everything. Good.
Jan, in the past, my position as the department chair was an administrative position, I think you knew that, and that's what their job was, solely to do that. But they had a lot of consultants, at points, somebody would be here for a week straight all day doing it. Our consulting fees have just basically gone away, so it's been very difficult, it's been a stretch, so I would appreciate the fact if other people were involved in, I mean, you don't want too many, because then it gets a little crazy, but to have you need somebody else there, you need another pair of eyes, because it is a massive project, and that could really cause major problems if it doesn't work. And if you don't have the consulting, somebody, especially within the program, it's tough,
We're not
very
going to have,
difficult.
I'm sorry, we're not having consultants outside of the training. Once the training's done, our people will do the work. That's our goal, that's what we're going to do. I'm not bringing in consultants.
So you don't want to budget consultants?
That's all in the cost for Aspen, we already have it in the budget.
But you have a helpline attached to that, though, correct, Bill? Because it really has to be
You'll have a
somebody that you
helpline,
have.
but you guys will be,
Yes, there's a helpline.
you'll have the support.
But, this isn't on the agenda,
Right.
so
Well,
we really need to limit our discussion to budget
Yes, it
additions.
came out of guidance.
Guidance, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Anything else, Jan?
I mean, not that I don't want to have it on, but maybe we can have it, if you want to have the discussion, let's have it next week.
I'll put it on, as you said.
I mean, unless it's, like you said, it's a budget question, that's
Yeah,
fine.
that was the thing. Anything else, Jan?
Well, the answer to the question is, there's training, in our budget, there's $80,000 for Aspen in this year's budget that will provide the purchasing of the software and the training of our employees. It's in this year's budget, so it doesn't need to be in next year's budget that you're looking at now.
Okay.
The budget is it?
So the training you're in.
It's already built into our price.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.